The stars looked the same as they always did through the windows of the Times Taejong's Pride asterisk. Cold, distant, and endless. Captain Daeho stood on the bridge with his coffee growing cold in his hand. They were 3 months into their exploration mission, and so far, they had found nothing but empty space and silent planets. "Captain, I'm getting something strange," Minji said from her station. She was the communications officer, young but sharp. Her fingers moved quickly across her console. "It's a signal. Very weak. Not from any human frequency." Daeho walked over to her station and set down his coffee. "What kind of signal?" "Distress call, I think. The language is unknown, but the pattern matches emergency broadcasts. It's repeating." Minji pulled up the audio. A strange voice filled the bridge, speaking in clicks and melodic tones that hurt to hear. There was fear in that voice. Anyone could tell. "Can you translate it?" Daeho asked. Minji worked for 20 minutes while the rest of the bridge crew waited in silence. Dr. Wonbin came up from the medical bay, curious about the commotion. Sergeant Heiji stood near the door, arms crossed, watching everything with her soldier's eyes. Finally, Minji looked up. Her face was pale. "Captain, you need to hear this." She played the translated message. A mechanical voice spoke the words in flat English, but the emotion behind them was clear. "This is Elder Vethries of the Pelthara colony on Rysara 3. We are under attack. Our defenses are failing. Our people are dying. We have no weapons, no warships, no soldiers. The Vrathan swarm is harvesting our world. Our children are afraid. We have sent this message to 47 civilizations within range. Please, if anyone can hear this, if there is mercy in the galaxy, help us. We are not warriors. We cannot fight. We need help. Please. Anyone." The bridge went silent. Daeho felt something heavy settle in his chest. He looked at the star charts. "How far?" 3 days at maximum speed," said their pilot Nari. She was already pulling up the route. "Captain, our mission is exploration," said Commander Salmon, his second in command. She wasn't arguing, just stating facts. "We're not a warship. We have light weapons, maybe 30 security personnel. If this Vrathan swarm is strong enough to attack a colony." "I know," Daeho said. He looked at the frozen image of the alien who had sent the message. Large eyes, delicate features, skin like smooth stone. They looked gentle, afraid. "How many species did they contact?" 47, Minji said quietly. "The broadcast went out 2 weeks ago. We're the first to respond." "The first?" Dr. Wonbin stepped forward. 2 weeks and no one came? The signal is weak. Maybe others didn't receive it," Salmon offered. But she didn't sound convinced. Daeho turned to face his crew. "I'm calling a vote. Standard procedure for mission deviations. We can continue our exploration mission, or we can answer this call. 3 days there. Unknown danger. Likely combat. We might not come back." He paused. "But those people called for help. They're still calling. Every hour that message repeats." "How many people in the colony?" asked Heiji. Minji checked. "Approximately 8,000 Pelthara. Mostly civilians. Scientists, traders, families, children," Wonbin said softly. Heiji nodded. "I vote we go." "Agreed," said Minji immediately. One by one, every person on the bridge voted the same. Daeho felt proud and terrified at the same time. His crew of 89 people were about to fly into a war zone for aliens they had never met. "Nari, set course for Rysara 3. Maximum speed," Daeho ordered. "Somin, start preparing combat scenarios. Heiji, get your security teams ready. Wonbin, prepare medical for potential casualties, human and alien. Minji, try to send a message back. Tell them help is coming." The ship hummed as it changed course. In her chair, Minji composed a simple message in the Pelthara language. She had only been learning it for an hour, but she did her best. Pelthara Colony. This is the human ship times Taejong's Pride asterisk. We received your distress call. We are 3 days away. Hold on. We are coming. Help is coming. She sent it and prayed they would receive it in time. The message would take hours to reach them at light speed. That night, Daeho couldn't sleep. He walked through the ship's corridors, seeing his crew preparing. Heiji was running combat drills with the security teams. Junho, the chief engineer, was modifying their weapon systems, trying to get more power from equipment designed for exploration, not war. In the medical bay, Wanbin was reading everything he could find about alien biology. There wasn't much. Humans had only made contact with 3 other species so far, and those meetings had been brief and peaceful. Daeho found Minji still at her station, even though her shift had ended hours ago. "Lieutenant, you should rest," he said gently. She looked up at him with tired eyes. "I keep listening to their message. Over and over. They sound so scared, Captain. And they said they contacted 47 civilizations. We're not the closest. We're not the strongest. But we're the only ones coming. Maybe the others didn't get the message," Daeho said. "Maybe," Minji said. But she didn't believe it. Neither did he. 3 days later, they would arrive at Risara III. 3 days to prepare for a battle they might not survive. 3 days, while people they had never met waited for salvation that might never come. But it was coming. Humanity had heard the call, and humanity was answering. On the second day, Minji received a response from the Pelthara colony. But the emotion was clear even through translation. "You came. Someone came. Thank you. Thank you. Please hurry." Daeho ordered those words posted on every screen throughout the ship. His crew needed to remember why they were doing this. They were doing it because someone asked for help. And humans don't ignore people who ask for help. The times Taejong's Pride times dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Risara system. What they saw made everyone on the bridge go silent. "Oh my God," Minji whispered. The planet hung in space like a dying ember. Around it floated the broken remains of orbital stations. Metal and glass drifted in clouds of debris. Some pieces were still burning, though fire couldn't exist in the vacuum of space. They were so hot. They glowed red. "Scanning for life signs," Saman said, her voice tight. She worked her console quickly. "I'm reading multiple ships in orbit. 12 contacts. Unknown configuration. They're... Captain, those ships are organic." Daeho leaned forward in his chair. The view screen zoomed in on the nearest vessel. It looked like a massive insect, all curves and chitin plating. Parts of it pulsed with sickly light. Tendrils extended from its belly, reaching down toward the planet's surface. "Those are the Vrothan," Dr. Wanbin said from where he stood at the back of the bridge. "They're harvesting the colony." "How many Pelthara survivors?" Daeho asked. Minji checked her readings. "I'm detecting life signs in scattered groups on the surface. Maybe 6,000. "Captain, we lost 2,000 already." The bridge crew absorbed this in silence. 2,000 dead. 2,000 people who had called for help and died waiting. "The Vrathan ships are scanning us," Saman reported. "They're turning toward our position." Daeho stood up. "Battle stations. Nari, keep us mobile. Heiji, prepare boarding teams. If we can't win in ship combat, we'll take the fight to them directly. Junho, give me everything our weapons have." "Captain, we're 1 ship against 12, Saman said. Not arguing, just making sure he understood. "I know. That's why we need to be smart." Daeho pulled up tactical displays. "These Vrathan ships are bigger than us, probably stronger. But they're used to hunting civilians. They won't expect real resistance. We use that." The first Vrathan ship moved toward them, slow and confident. It was 3 times the size of the times Taejong's Pride asterisk. "Incoming communication," Minji said. "Audio only." "Let's hear it," Daeho ordered. A voice filled the bridge, speaking in a language that sounded like tearing metal and screaming wind. Minji's computer translated. Small vessel. Leave this space. These creatures belong to the swarm. Interfere, and be consumed. Deho smiled, but there was no humor in it. Send a reply. Tell them no. Minji's fingers shook slightly as she sent the message. The Vrothan ship stopped moving for a moment, as if confused. Then, it accelerated toward them. Here they come, Nari said. Her hands moved across the pilot controls like she was playing an instrument. Wait for it, Deho said calmly. The Vrathan ship fired first. Bolts of green energy streaked across space. Nari spun the times Taejong's pride times in a spiral, and the shots passed by harmlessly. Now, fire everything, Deho ordered. The human ship's weapons weren't military grade, but Junho had pushed them beyond normal limits. Missiles and energy beams hit the Vrothan ship's side. The organic armor cracked. Something inside the ship caught fire. It screamed, an actual scream that came through space on radio frequencies. It's wounded, Salmon said, surprised. Captain, they're not as tough as they look. Then let's hurt them more. Nari, attack pattern Delta. All ships, we're going hunting. What followed was chaos. The times, Taejong's pride times, danced between the Vrathan vessels. Too fast for them to catch. Hitting and running. The Vrathan ships were powerful, but they moved like they were used to easy prey. They bunched together. They didn't cover each other. They got angry and made mistakes. 3 Vrothan ships died in the first hour. The human ship took damage too. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7. Fires in engineering. Casualties in security. But they were winning. Down on the planet's surface, the Pelthara watched the battle through their sensors. Elder Vethris stood in the emergency shelter with 3,000 of his people. They had given up hope days ago. Now they watched as a single alien ship fought for them. Who are they? Someone asked. They call themselves humans, Vethris said. He had received the message 3 days ago. We are coming. Hold on. They answered our call. Only them? One ship? Vethris didn't answer. He couldn't explain why one species sent one ship while 46 others sent nothing. On the times Taejong's pride asterisk, Deho was coordinating with Heiji. We need to evacuate survivors. Can you get shuttles down? Deho. The Vrathan have the landing zones covered, Heiji said. She was suiting up in combat armor, preparing to lead a ground team. But give me 20 Marines, and I'll clear a path. Do it. Nari, provide cover fire. The first shuttle launched 15 minutes later with Nari at the controls and 10 Marines in the back. They screamed through the atmosphere while Vrothan ground forces fired at them. Nari flew like gravity was a suggestion, not a rule. They landed hard in a cleared plaza near the largest shelter. The shuttle ramp dropped and Heiji ran out, weapon ready. She expected to fight immediately. Instead, she saw crowds of aliens staring at her. The Pelthara were tall and thin, with smooth skin that looked like polished stone. They moved slowly, gracefully, like they might break if they moved too fast. An old one approached. Elder Vethris. He spoke in his own language, but a translator device gave English words. You came. You actually came. We need to move fast, Heiji said. Get everyone who can walk onto the shuttle. We'll come back for the others. How many ships do you have? Vethris asked. 1, Heiji said. She was already organizing the evacuation, counting heads, calculating capacity. Vethris stared at her. 1 ship? You brought 1 ship against the entire swarm? Heiji looked at him while reloading her weapon. She had blood on her face, from where shrapnel had cut her cheek during the space battle. The wound would have killed a Pelthara. To her, it was barely worth noticing. It's the ship we had, she said simply. Now get your people moving. They made 7 shuttle runs that day. 7 trips through hell, dodging Vrathan fire, pulling out as many Pelthara as they could. The times Taejong's pride times held orbit, fighting constantly, taking more damage with each hour. By the end of the first day, They had evacuated 800 Pelthara. 5,000 remained on the surface, and 9 Vrathan ships still filled the sky. Dr. Wanbin worked frantically in medical. The Pelthara survivors arrived injured, terrified, and broken. As he treated them, he noticed something alarming. Their biology was fragile. A broken bone could kill them if not treated immediately. A fall from standing height could cause fatal internal bleeding. They bruised at the slightest touch. "How did your species survive long enough to develop civilization?" he asked Vethris, who was helping him. "Our world was kind," Vethris said quietly. "Gentle. We had no predators, no disasters. We grew up in paradise." He looked at Wanbin's hands, scarred and calloused, at his face, marked by old wounds. "Your world was not kind, was it?" "No," Wanbin admitted. "Earth made us tough. We had to be." A young Pelthara child was brought in, crying from a sprained ankle. Wanbin treated it carefully while the child's mother watched in terror. The injury that made him use painkillers and careful bandaging would have been nothing to a human child. Just ice and rest. Later, Heiji came to medical for treatment. She had been shot twice by Vrathan weapons. The rounds had passed through her armor and into her side. She walked in under her own power, barely limping. The Pelthara in medical stared at her in shock. "Sergeant, you need surgery immediately," Wanbin said, alarmed. "After the next shuttle run," Heiji said. "We've got 400 more to pull out before dark." Vethris watched this human, bleeding from holes that should have killed her, arguing that she needed to save more of his people before accepting help. He understood then why humanity had come alone. They weren't the wisest species. They weren't the strongest ships. But they were the ones who came because they couldn't ignore someone crying for help, even if it killed them. 1 week into the siege, the Times Taejong's Pride Times was dying. The ship shook with each Vrathan attack, and the lights flickered more than they stayed steady. Junho spent his days in engineering, patching systems that should have been replaced, holding the ship together with spare parts and prayer. "How long can we keep this up?" Captain Daeho asked him during a rare moment when they both had time to breathe. Junho looked at the damage reports and didn't meet his captain's eyes. "The hull is at 40% integrity. Life support is failing on 6 decks. We've lost half our weapons. Honestly, Captain, we should have been dead 3 days ago." "Then we'll make it 3 more," Daeho said. The Vrathan had adapted to human tactics. They had called for reinforcements. Now 30 of their bioships circled the planet like predators around wounded prey. They had stopped rushing in. Instead, they attacked in coordinated waves, wearing the human ship down bit by bit. On the bridge, Commander Salmon was working on something she called Plan Desperate. She pulled Daeho aside to explain it privately. "We can't win a straight fight anymore," she said, pulling up tactical displays. "Their ships are organic, controlled by a central intelligence in each vessel. If we can board one, disable that intelligence, the ship dies." "You want to board a Vrathan vessel?" Daeho looked at the screens showing the massive, pulsing bioships. "How? Why? How?" "We use the Times Taejong's Pride Times as bait. Draw them in close. Then Heiji and her team use boarding pods to breach their hull." Salmon's expression was grim. "We'd be sending them into those things blind. No idea what's inside. But if they can disable even a few ships from the inside, it might buy us time." Daeho finished. "Bring Heiji in. Let's hear what she thinks." "In by. Aldous tame." 10 minutes later, Sergeant Heiji studied the plan and nodded. "It's suicide. But it might work. I'll need 20 Marines." 10. "Take 30, Daeho said. "Take anyone who volunteers." Heiji put out the call. 43 people volunteered. She had to turn volunteers away. "We had a do. We have 243, and we had a do." Down in the refugee camps they had set up in the cargo bays, the Pelthara survivors were learning about their rescuers. A young Pelthara named Lithara barely into adolescence by her species' standards, spent her days following Minji around. "Why do you do this?" Lithara asked her one day. She spoke English now. Learned fast like children do. "Why fight for us? We are nothing to you. We have nothing to give you." Minji was monitoring communications, listening for any sign of reinforcements from the other 46 species the Pelthara had contacted. So far, silence. She looked down at Lithara and chose her words carefully. "On Earth, we have a saying. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. If you're in trouble and you call for help, you're part of our family. That's it. That's the whole reason. But you're dying for us," Lithara said quietly. "I saw the casualty reports. 34 of your people are dead. Many more are injured. Your ship is breaking. All for strangers." Minji knelt down to meet Lithara's eyes. "You're not strangers anymore. You called, and we answered. That makes you our people now. We don't abandon our people." Lithara thought about this for a long moment. "The other species, the ones who didn't come. We sent the message to 47 civilizations. I saw the list. Some were close, closer than you." "I know," Minji said softly. "Why?" Minji didn't have a good answer. She just shrugged. "Maybe we're the only ones foolish enough. Or maybe we're the only ones brave enough. I'm not sure there's a difference." That conversation spread through the refugee camps like wildfire. The Pelthara started calling the humans the ones who stay. Because while the galaxy ignored them, humans stayed and fought. Captain Deho knew he needed to do something bold. They were losing. Slowly, but certainly. So he made a decision that would echo across the galaxy. He recorded a message and broadcast it on every frequency the ship could reach. Open transmission. Meant for anyone listening. "This is Captain Deho of the human vessel, times Taejong's Pride *, calling any ship, any species, any civilization within range. 1 week ago, the Pelthara colony on Risara 3rd sent out a distress call. They sent it to 47 different species. They asked for help. They said their children were dying. They said they couldn't fight back." He paused, looking at the camera with exhausted eyes. "My crew of 89 answered that call. We were 3 days away. We came as fast as we could. When we arrived, we found 12 Vrathan ships destroying this colony. We engaged them. We've been fighting for 7 days. We've evacuated 3,000 Pelthara survivors. 5,000 more remain on the surface. We've lost 34 crew members. Our ship is failing." Another pause. His hands gripped the sides of the console. "We don't abandon people. We don't calculate acceptable losses. We don't decide that some lives matter less than others. And we don't run. This is humanity's answer to anyone listening. To the Vrathan swarm, you picked the wrong prey. To the 46 species who ignored this call, shame on you. Remember who answered. Remember who stayed and fought." He leaned closer to the camera. "To any Pelthara listening on the surface, hold on. We're still here. We're not leaving. Help is coming. I don't know from where, and I don't know when. But humans don't fight alone. Our people will come. They always do." He ended the transmission and sat back, suddenly aware of how tired he was. "Captain, that message will reach Earth in 3 weeks, Salmon said quietly. "If we're still here, we'll be here," Deho said. "Or we'll die here. Either way, Earth will know what we did." The boarding operation happened that night. Heiji led 30 Marines in 6 boarding pods, each one a small, armored shell with a single mission: breach a Vrathan bioship and cause chaos. Corporal Taiyang was in Heiji's pod. He was young, barely 25, but he had steady hands and a calm voice. As they launched from the times Taejong's Pride times and flew toward the nearest Vrathan vessel, he kept his team focused. "Remember the briefing. These ships are alive. Everything inside is biological. Watch for antibodies. Defense organisms. Anything that moves. Stay together. Stay sharp. The pod hit the Vrathan hull with a wet, tearing sound. Cutters burned through organic armor. Then they were inside, dropping into a tunnel that pulsed with disgusting light. It was like being inside a giant's intestine. The walls were wet and warm. The air smelled like rot and ammonia. Things moved in the walls, reaching out with tendrils. "Contact!" someone shouted. Defense organisms emerged from the walls, things like eyeless dogs made of muscle and teeth. The Marines opened fire. The fighting inside the Vrathan ships was brutal and close. Taeyang's team pushed deeper, following maps that Salmon had guessed from sensor scans. They were looking for the central intelligence, the brain that controlled this massive creature. They found it in what looked like a cathedral made of bone. A massive pulsing organ hung from the ceiling, connected to thousands of nerve bundles. It was beautiful and horrible at the same time. "Plant the charges," Hiji ordered. She was bleeding from multiple wounds, but her voice never wavered. 30 seconds, then we run." They set the explosives and retreated, fighting their way back to the pod. Behind them, the charges detonated. The entire ship convulsed. The lights died. The walls stopped pulsing. Outside, the Times Taejong's Pride Times watched as 4 Vrathan bioships went dark and drifted. 4 dead ships out of 30. It wasn't enough to win. But it was enough to keep fighting. That night, Lithara asked Minji another question. "The message your captain sent. Do you really think your people will come?" Minji looked at the young Pelthara and smiled, even though she was exhausted and scared. "It's not logical, it's not smart, but it's who we are. And, if they don't come in time, then we fight until we can't fight anymore," Minji said simply. "Because that's also who we are." 3 weeks away, traveling at the speed of light, Captain Daeho's message was crossing space toward Earth. When it arrived, everything would change. Earth Defense Command received Captain Daeho's message at 0600 hours on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Bora was drinking her second coffee when her aide rushed into her office without knocking. "Admiral, you need to see this. Now." She watched the recording in silence. Daeho's exhausted face, his words about the 47 species, the Pelthara dying, the crew of 89 fighting alone against impossible odds. When it ended, she sat very still for a long moment. "How old is this message?" she asked. 3 weeks. It took that long to reach us. "Ma'am, if they're still alive, get me the president," Bora said, standing up. "And start sending recall orders to every available ship in the fleet. Everything that can fight. I want it ready to move in 6 hours. Admiral. That's nearly the entire military. Are you sure?" Over. "This is the promises on the pod." Bora looked at her aide with fierce eyes. "One of our ships is fighting alone to protect people we've never met. 1 crew against an army. You're asking if I'm sure we should help them?" The aide stepped back. "No, ma'am. Sending the orders now." "No." Within an hour, every human military base in 3 systems was receiving the same message. Return to Earth immediately. Prepare for combat operations. Maximum speed. Every captain who received it had the same reaction. Something big was happening. President Kwan convened an emergency meeting of Earth's government. The chamber filled with representatives from every nation, every coalition. The walls displayed Daeho's message on loop. "We need to discuss proportional response," one diplomat said carefully. "This is a tragedy, certainly, but deploying our entire fleet for an unknown species." "Stop," President Kwan said quietly. The word cut through the room like a blade. "Everyone in this room, I want you to watch that message again. Actually watch it. Look at Captain Daeho's face. Listen to his words. Are you any Sev? Any 7? Are you Zeven?" They watched in silence. Daeho, talking about the 34 dead. The 5,000, Pelthara, still trapped. the 46 species that ignored the call. Now, Quan continued, I want everyone to imagine that message going out across the entire galaxy, every species seeing it. What will they learn about humanity? That we help those in need, someone offered. More than that, Quan said. They'll learn what we value. They'll learn what we're willing to die for. They'll learn that when humans make a promise, we keep it, even if it costs everything. So we send the fleet, Admiral Bora said. It wasn't a question. We send everyone, Quan replied. Every ship that can fight. Because somewhere out there, 89 of our people are holding the line alone. And we don't leave our people alone. The vote was unanimous. Across human space, 200 warships began moving toward a single destination. The largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Battleships, carriers, destroyers, cruisers. Thousands of personnel. Enough firepower to crack a planet. All of it going to save 8,000 aliens that most humans had never heard of. The galactic community noticed. Other species monitored human communications, and they intercepted the fleet orders. Ambassadors contacted each other in confusion and alarm. The humans are deploying a war fleet, one ambassador reported to their homeworld. 200 ships. Full military mobilization. Against whom? Their government asked. No one. They're going to help the Pelthera colony. The one we ignored 3 weeks ago. And there was a long pause in the communication. They're sending 200 warships to save aliens they've never met? That appears to be the case. Another species ambassador requested an urgent meeting with President Quan. They met in a quiet office, away from cameras and recording devices. President Quan, I need to understand, the ambassador said. He was from the Vexori Empire, one of the 46 species that had received the Pelthara distress call. Why such a massive response? These Pelthara, they're not your people. They have no strategic value, no trade agreements, no alliances. You're risking your entire military for strangers. Quan looked at the ambassador with something like pity in her eyes. That's exactly why we're going. Because they have nothing to offer us except need. Because they called for help. And we're the kind of species that answers. But it's not logical, the ambassador protested. No, Quan agreed. It's not logical. It's human. The meeting ended badly. The Vexori ambassador left confused and disturbed. His species had calculated the Pelthara situation and decided intervention wasn't worth the cost. Now the humans were making them look cold and heartless by comparison. He wasn't the only one. Across the galaxy, governments that had ignored the Pelthara call started to panic. Public opinion was turning against them. Their own people were asking uncomfortable questions. Why didn't we help? If we were in danger, would others ignore us too? Several governments tried to save face by offering to send token support now, weeks too late. President Quan's response was polite, but cutting. We appreciate the offer, but we don't need help cleaning up messes we were willing to face alone. Perhaps next time. Don't wait to see if someone else will do the right thing first. Back at Risara 3rd, the Times Taejong's Pride Times was on its last legs, 72% casualties, life support failing, hull breaches on every deck. Junho was working miracles, but miracles could only go so far. Captain Daeho looked like he had aged 10 years in 3 weeks. His uniform was torn and stained with blood, some his own, some from crew members he had carried to medical. He stood on a bridge that was more patchwork than original construction, surrounded by a crew that refused to quit. Captain, the Vrathan are massing for a final assault, Salmon reported. Her voice was calm, but her hands shook. 50 ships. They're going to hit us with everything. Daeho looked at the tactical display. 50 bioships against one dying human vessel. The math was clear. How many Pelthara are still on the surface? 2,000. We evacuated the rest, but we ran out of time for the others. Then we hold, Daeho said simply. Until we can't hold anymore. Minji was at her station, still monitoring communications, still hoping. Lithara stood next to her. the young Pelthara refusing to go to the shelters. "You should be with the others," Minji told her gently. "I want to be here when the end comes," Lithara said. "So you don't die alone." Minji felt tears in her eyes but blinked them away. "Brave kid." The Vrathan fleet moved into position. Deho opened a ship-wide channel so everyone could hear him, human and Pelthara alike. "This is the captain. The enemy is preparing their final attack. Our ship is heavily damaged. We've lost many friends. We're tired, hurt, and alone." He paused. "But we did what we came to do. We answered a call for help. We saved 6,000 people. And we held the line. Whatever happens next, be proud. The galaxy will remember what we did here." The Vrathan Queen ship, the largest of them all, began broadcasting in broken English. "Human vessel, you have fought well. You may leave. Take your survivors and go. We will allow this." Deho almost laughed. "Send a reply. Tell them no. We're not leaving without everyone." The Vrathan Queen seemed confused by this response. They gave humans one more chance to flee. Deho refused again. Vrathan quote, Deho refused again. "So be it," the Vrathan Queen said. "You die with the prey." The 50 bioships began their approach, moving in perfect formation. The Times Taejong's Pride Times prepared to make its last stand. Then Minji gasped. "Captain! I'm detecting faster-than-light signatures. Multiple contacts. Hundreds of them." Everyone turned to look at her. She worked her console frantically, not believing what she was seeing. "It's a fleet. A massive fleet. They're human, Captain. It's our fleet. They're here." On the view screen, space began to tear open as ships dropped out of FTL. One after another, human warships appeared. Battleships that dwarfed the Times, Taejong's Pride *, carriers launching fighter wings, destroyers taking up defensive positions. 200 vessels materializing in formation around the battered exploration ship. The Vrathan fleet stopped advancing. Suddenly, uncertain, the human flagship, the Dreadnought Times Soul's Hammer *, moved to the front of the formation. Its captain, Ji-Wan, opened communications to the Vrathan Queen ship. Her message was simple, delivered in a voice that promised violence. "This is Captain Ji-Wan of the Human Defense Fleet. You have 3 minutes to leave this system. After that, we will consider you hostile targets and respond accordingly. Leave now." The Vrathan Queen ship tried to respond with threats, tried to maintain dominance. Ji-Wan cut off the communication and gave an order to her fleet. "Light them up. Fire control. I want target locks on every Vrathan ship. Let them see what they're facing." 200 warships activated their weapons systems simultaneously. The Vrathan ships found themselves painted by thousands of targeting sensors, locked in by enough firepower to turn their entire swarm into debris. The Vrathan Queen ship received one more message from Ji-Wan. 2 minutes. The swarm broke. 50 bioships turned and fled, jumping to FTL as fast as their organic drives could manage. In seconds, they were gone. On the bridge of the Times, Taejong's Pride *, Deho sat down heavily in his damaged chair and started to laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had accepted death and suddenly found life instead. His crew joined him, laughing and crying and holding each other. Lithara looked up at Minji with wide eyes. "You said they would come. I told you," Minji said, tears streaming down her face. "Humans don't fight alone. We never do." The Battle of Risera III lasted 4 hours. The Vrathan swarm, which had seemed so terrifying to the crew of the Times, Taejong's Pride *, was completely destroyed by the human fleet. The bioships tried to fight, tried to use their numbers and organic weapons. It didn't matter. 200 human warships moved like a single organism, coordinated and ruthless. When it was over, not a single Vrathan vessel escaped. Captain Deho watched from his damaged bridge as the human fleet secured the system. Medical ships moved in to treat the wounded. transport vessels began evacuating the remaining Pelthara from the surface. Engineering teams swarmed the Times Taejong's Pride asterisk, trying to save what they could of the dying ship. Admiral Bora herself came aboard, walking through corridors that were more ruin than ship. She found Daeho in the medical bay, refusing treatment until all his crew were cared for first. "Captain," she said quietly. He tried to stand, but she waved him back down. She looked at the medical bay, filled with wounded crew members and Pelthara survivors mixed together. Human doctors treating alien patients, Pelthara helping to care for injured humans. "You did good work here," Bora said. Daeho laughed, but it was tired. "We almost died. We lost 34 people. The ship is destroyed. We had no plan beyond not giving up." "Exactly," Bora said. She sat down next to him, this admiral sitting beside a captain in a ruined medical bay. "You held the line with everything you had. You answered a call for help when no one else would. That message you sent reached Earth 3 weeks after you recorded it. Do you know what happened?" "You came," Daeho said simply. "Everyone came," Bora corrected. "Every available ship. Every crew that could fight. Because you showed us what was at stake. Not just Pelthara lives, but what it means to be human." She looked at him seriously. "The galaxy is watching now, Captain. They saw one exploration vessel fight for 3 weeks against impossible odds. Then, they saw humanity send its entire fleet to finish what you started. They're learning what we value." In the refugee camps, Elder Vethris walked among his people. 6,000 Pelthara had survived. 2,000 had died before help arrived. Every survivor owed their life to the humans who had refused to abandon them. He found Lithara helping to organize supplies. The young Pelthara had become a bridge between species, translating, explaining, connecting. "Elder," she said when she saw him, "the humans say we can come with them. To Earth or to a new colony world. They'll help us rebuild." "Why?" Vethris asked, even though he was starting to understand. "We can offer them nothing. No technology they don't have. No resources they need. Why help us more?" Lithara smiled. "I asked Lieutenant Minji the same question. She said that helping people doesn't need a reason beyond them needing help. The humans have a word for it. Compassion." Vethris thought about the message he had sent 3 weeks ago. 47 species contacted. 46 ignored it. 1 answered. He thought about Captain Daeho's broadcast, calling out those who had remained silent. "Shame on you," he had said. "Remember who answered. We need to remember this," Vethris said quietly. "Not just that humans saved us, but that 46 others did not. When we rebuild, when we are strong again, we must remember both." The Galactic Council convened an emergency session 2 weeks later. The chamber was tense. The human delegation arrived with Ambassador Sunwoo leading them. She was young for a diplomat, but her eyes were old. She had spent time on Risara 3, talking to survivors, learning what had happened. The council's first speaker was from the Vexori Empire. He spoke carefully, trying to control the narrative. "We acknowledge the tragedy at Risara 3. The council extends its sympathy to the Pelthara people. We also recognize humanity's enthusiastic response. However, we must address concerns about human military capabilities. The deployment of 200 warships represents a significant threat to galactic stability." Sunwoo listened to this with a blank expression. When he finished, she stood slowly. "Let me make sure I understand," she said, her voice calm but carrying across the chamber. "The Pelthara sent distress calls to 47 species. For 2 weeks, they begged for help while people died. 46 of you did nothing. 1 human ship answered. 1 crew of 89 fought alone for 3 weeks, losing 34 people. Then, humanity sent a fleet to finish what that crew started. And now you want to talk about us being a threat? The chamber went silent. Where were you? Sunwoo continued, her voice getting harder. Where were your fleets? Your compassion? Your concern for galactic stability? When the Pelthara were dying, you calculated that it wasn't worth the cost. You decided those lives didn't matter enough. That's not fair, another council member protested. We have our own people to protect, our own resources to manage. We can't respond to every crisis. The Pelthara didn't ask for everyone, Sunwoo said. They asked for anyone. Just one species to care. And for 2 weeks, they got silence. She pulled up a display, showing the list of species contacted. The Vexari Empire was 3 days away. The Karathi Alliance had 12 warships in the neighboring system. The Drexen Confederacy has treaties about mutual aid. But none of you came. The Karathi Alliance, the Drexen, she let that hang in the air. So yes, humanity has military capability. We have 200 warships, and we use them to save people. You want to call that a threat? Fine. Let me be clear about what threatens us. What threatens us is standing by while innocent people die. What threatens us is calculating that some lives are worth less than others. What threatens us is a galaxy where a child can cry for help and be ignored by 46 civilizations. Sunwoo walked to the center of the chamber, her voice echoing. My species has fought terrible wars. We've nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. We know violence. We know cruelty. We've made every mistake a species can make. But we learned something from all that pain and death. We learned that civilization isn't measured by technology, or territory, or military might. It's measured by who you're willing to protect, who you're willing to die for. Even if they're strangers. Even if they have nothing to offer you. Especially then. She looked around at the council members, meeting their eyes. The humans who answered that distress call didn't know the Pelthara. They had never met them. They had no alliance, no trade agreements, no strategic interest. They just heard people asking for help and couldn't ignore it. That's not a threat to the galaxy. That's what the galaxy should be. The chamber erupted into argument. Some species defended their decision not to respond. Others tried to save face. A few, quietly, expressed shame. The Galactic Council's response was to create a new protocol. They called it the Resara Doctrine. Any distress call received by any council member must be acknowledged and assessed. Species must coordinate responses. No call for help can be ignored. It was a small step. But it was something. Years passed. The Times, Taejong's Pride Times, was too damaged to repair, so they made it into a memorial. It orbits Resara 3 permanently now, preserved as it was after the battle. Pelthara and humans visit it together, remembering. The crew of the Times Taejong's Pride Times became legendary. Captain Daeho retired from active service but spent his years teaching at the military academy. He always started his first class the same way, by playing the original Pelthara distress call. This is what we answered, he would tell new cadets. Not because we were ordered to, not because we calculated the strategic value, but because someone needed help. Remember that. Whatever else you learn here, remember why we do this. Sergeant Heiji became a training instructor, teaching Marines about fighting against impossible odds. Her lessons were brutal and practical, but they ended with the same message. Never leave people behind. Lieutenant Minji continued her work in communications and linguistics. She helped establish the first human Pelthara cultural exchange program. Lithara, now grown, was one of the first Pelthara ambassadors to Earth. Dr. Wanbin wrote extensively about cross-species medicine. His work on treating the fragile Pelthara biology saved thousands of lives in the years that followed. Humanity became something new in the galaxy. Not the strongest species, not the wisest, but the ones who answered calls for help. When disaster struck, when colonies were threatened, when pirates raided, People didn't call the Galactic Council first. They called Earth, and Earth always answered. The memorial on Risara III became a pilgrimage site. Species from across the galaxy came to see the ruined ship that held the line. They came to understand what it meant. A monument was built at the base, a statue showing the times Taejong's pride times as it looked after the battle. Scarred and broken, but still flying. The inscription was simple. Written in 47 languages, they stayed. Captain Daeho visited the memorial when he was old, his grandchildren with him. The planet was thriving now, rebuilt with human and Pelthara working together. Gardens grew where battlefields had been. Children played where people had once died. An elderly Pelthara approached him. It took a moment before Daeho recognized her. Lithara, now with children and grandchildren of her own. "Captain," she said warmly. "I hoped I would see you here." "Just Daeho now," he said with a smile. "I'm retired. Never just Daeho." Lithara replied. She gestured to the young Pelthara with her. "This is my granddaughter. Her name is Minji." The child looked up at Daeho with wide eyes. "You're the captain? The one who came?" "I'm one of them," Daeho said, kneeling down carefully. His joints weren't what they used to be. "There were 89 of us on that ship, and 200 ships came after. Thousands of people who decided you were worth saving. My teacher says you changed the galaxy," young Minji said. Daeho looked at the memorial, at the preserved ship, at the inscription about staying. He thought about the message he had sent, about the fleet that came, about the 46 species who had learned a hard lesson. "We didn't change the galaxy," he said quietly. "We just showed it what we are, what humans are. We're the ones who answer. We're the ones who stay. We're the ones who come when you call." He stood, looking at the gardens where human and Pelthara children played together, where two species that should have been strangers had become family. "And we're the ones who never forget," he added. Lithara's granddaughter looked up at him seriously. "When I grow up, I want to answer calls for help too." "Then you're already human in the ways that matter," Daeho said with a smile. "Welcome to the family." The sun set over Risara III, casting long shadows from the memorial. The statue of the times Taejong's pride times stood silhouetted against the sky, broken but unbowed, a symbol that would stand for generations, a reminder that somewhere in the galaxy, when you call for help, someone will answer. Humans will answer. They always do.